Today, I'd like to have fun, okay? I think education is fun. And so why and how it's going to be fun is that you have to engage with me, okay? Because I hate lecturing. As a child, I never liked to be lectured. And as an adult, the guy in the back row has never wanted to be lectured. So with that, so I want to talk a little bit first. We're going to talk about market disruption, okay? So can we start there? And what is market disruption? Who can tell me? Is that going to come up? Oh, here it comes. Okay. Let me give you a definition. So let's talk about market. What do you think market disruption means?
Something new that comes into the market that changes kind of everything.
You bet. So can you give me? That's a great example, right? So what it's doing is it's taking something that's really common, that's being consistent over and over and over again, and all of a sudden something's come in and it's completely just trashed it or changed it or put it on its head. Give me an idea. Give me a business that's done that just recently. Go ahead.
I think food delivery systems with HelloFresh, things like that, just bring the meal to your door.
Yeah. So what's the big name that brings food to your door?
HelloFresh.
Okay. What else? Ubereats. Let's talk about that, right? So let's talk right there. So Uber, literally, okay, we're talking 12 years ago, the idea gets launched, and today there are over 3 million drivers. By the way, I just flew in from into Salt Lake on Sunday, and my app was giving me a difficult time, and so my Uber app wasn't working. So I walked and I said, I'll just grab a cab. There were 2 taxis waiting, and there was nobody around. That's disruption, right? And so you as business majors, some of you want to be entrepreneurs, some of you want to start your own business, some of you want to just find a good job within a business company. But I like the ideas of disruption. I like understanding them. Let's talk about another one really quickly, okay? Airbnb, right? Has anybody ever stayed at an Airbnb? Right? Why? Cheaper, right? And sometimes it's just easy, right? In and out, less, money exchange is easy. You don't get hit with a lot of extra fees. And check that out. 160 million users annually. Now the pandemic's changed a little bit of that. I'm sure those numbers, that was of the end of 2019, so I'm sure those numbers are down. But what it's done is it's changed the market. In fact, a dear friend of mine, Dick Marriott, has told me that, that because of the pandemic, 1 in 4 hotels will go away. Go away, 1 in 4. So the Marriotts will make it. They're big enough and strategic enough that they'll make it, but they're going through a downsizing, right? And now what's happening is hotels are going through this iteration of transforming from a hotel into apartments, condos. They're completely remodeled. So again, that's disruption, right? So this is one of my favorites. Oh, we bounced. That was weird. Hang on. So let's talk about this. So Mali, Africa, I have an egg farm in Mali, Africa. So this is a market disruption at a micro level, okay? So I want to talk about Sidu. So Sidu is this young lady who had a very difficult time going to school because of feminine hygiene issues, right? So when her menstrual cycle came around on a monthly basis, you know what they would use? Corn cobs and rags. Okay, talk about infections. I mean, I can go on and on and on, right? So I met her and we started talking. I said, hey, let me show you these really cool feminine hygiene kits that I bring over. I said, you can start your own business. And we spent time with translators and everything, and one of the gals had made them, and so she worked with her and taught her how to make them. So she went and we got her a whole bunch of donated cloth, and she started this business. She now has 10 employees, and this is a micro disruption. So all of a sudden it's like, hey, we can help young women go to school. We can keep them in the classrooms. We can provide better health. And And she's now, I mean, she sells like 2,000 to 3,000 of these a month. She's extremely wealthy in Mali. Average daily wage is $2. So anyway, and so my message is how do you, when you're a major, a business major, right? How can you be a business disruptor? You know, what does that mean? I mean, are you going to be the next person to start Uber? Right? And so there's some things to think about as you're trying to solve problems. And that's really what market disruption is trying to do things differently, more effectively. Toyota calls it Kaizen, which is the elegant solution. They're looking, when they started Lexus, they tore the car completely down and started literally from the ground up to how to do it just that much better. And trying to find an elegant solution to make it better, right? And then just things to think about. If you want to be a business leader or if you want to start your own business, the word that I would tell you you have to be maniacal. Maniacal at every detail when you start a business. Because if you aren't, you'll fail. I promise you'll fail. If you're lackadaisical or soft or haphazard or just low-key about it, regardless if you're trying to be the next Uber or Airbnb or even Sea-Doo at a very small level, you know what? She taught those, so she started with 2 young ladies. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
When you say maniacal, and obviously I think that has some negative connotations associated with it. How do you mean?
What I mean maniacal is that you have to be so focused and so committed. And, you know, are you willing to put in the effort, the energy, and the attentiveness to detail that nobody else is going to be? I'm not talking about being crazy, okay? I mean, honestly, when you start a business, you have to be a little crazy because it's risk-taking. But from my perspective, the maniacal is really so focused on detail and so willing to put yourself way out there, right? And we're going to talk about that. And so lastly, I want to just give you really a strong recommendation. What are we going through right now in our world? I know the pandemic, but I'm talking about, you know, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was the Industrial Revolution, right? What would you call our revolution that's going on right now? Yeah, easy, tech, right? And technology is changing so dramatically. Do you know that when Apple releases their phone, the next phone is they're already ready to release their next one. And so what you're buying is you're buying outdated product the day you buy it, the day it comes out. And and that's their business plan, right? So technology is dramatic and changing. And I think that any business that you start or any kind of business, it's going to require technology. And if you are going to start a business or own and operate a business, you need to have really basic fundamentals of coding and programming. Now, I'm not telling you to go be a coder or a programmer, but you should take a coding and programming class that you understand it. Right now, I'm in a nonprofit foundation. I work with a team of 8 programmers and coders on a weekly basis. I know nothing about coding and programming. I'm trying to learn it. And I've taken some classes, and at my age, it's hard. At your age, it should be a lot easier. But you need to understand the fundamentals of coding and programming. It's really a critical piece of your educational experience in the world of business. And you might not think about it, but I mean, you're writing on tablets, you got computers, and some of you are just still taking notes, which is fine, but I promise you, technology is going to drive your success, and the more you understand it, the better you are. Okay, so disruption. I really felt like I wanted to share that with you today. Questions about what I shared with you? Okay, so I'm involved in we're going to talk about career, maybe career development, career choice, or career ideas, and what I do, right? So I've been in the automotive world. I've been with the Garff Automotive Group for 35 years. 17 years ago, we started a community portion of the operation, and so I now manage a nonprofit organization. How many of you are familiar with Keys to Success that was in the high schools? Okay, so we have a reading program called Road to Success, and then we started a summer coding boot camp in the high school 6 years ago. So I speak with experience. And last year we had 3,000 high school students register. So big deal, right? So I manage those programs. So we've got automotive here. We have the nonprofit of Keys Road and Code, and I have slides for that. The automotive I don't. I would just have to talk about that. Or kind of my love and passion is the Molly Egg Farm, which is a business I started 6 years ago. So we can talk about, we need to choose one of those three. And so is anybody, I guess by the show of hands, how many would you like me to talk about the Molly Egg Farm? So, that was consensus. I love when I have consensus. All right. So this is crazy. I love this. I love what I'm about to share with you. So I'm really passionate about the egg farm. And the reason why I'm passionate about it is, that's weird. How come it's coming? There we go. So the reason why I'm passionate about, I'm just passionate about education. So 17 years ago, I switched. I started managing the Garff family's desire to change and give back to the community, and the thing we chose was education, and that's what launched the Keys to Success program. And so I've been doing that for 17 years, and I had a friend come to me and said, hey, do you want to start an egg farm in Mali, Africa? First of all, who knows where Mali, Africa is? Okay, one hand, okay? So when you think of Africa, you have the big part of the continent that comes down right to a point, right? And that's Cape Cod, or Cape Horn, excuse me. So up in the top part, right up here, in the northwest of the continent is Mali. And have any of you ever heard of Timbuktu? Timbuktu is in Mali. I did not know that until I became an egg farmer in Mali, Africa. And so I had a partner come to me, and he was doing he was taking doctors over, and he said, hey, do you want to start an egg farm in Mali, Africa? And these were my exact words, not only no, but hell no. I said, it's 6,000 plus miles away. And I just was guessing. It's actually 6,568 miles. And he said, no, I'm serious. I said, give me the business plan. I'll look at it, but really, I'm not interested. So I came home, and I had a son who was 26 at the time, and I just said really kind of off the hip, do you have an interest in starting an egg farm in Mali, Africa? And he said, are you serious? I said, well, I guess I'm serious if you're serious. And he said, I might be serious. I said, well, here's the business plan. I want you to tell me everything that you need to know about raising hens and laying eggs in Mali, Africa. And I'm thinking, okay, this is short-lived. I'm out. I got passed the business plan off. I'm out. Comes back a week later, and I thought, wait a minute, I got to do some research about eggs and chickens. I got to know what I'm talking about. So I started reading how to manage hens and eggs and what it requires. And so I spent the week kind of just doing some quiet research, hoping that my son wasn't going to come back. And sure enough, he came back and said, I want to do this. I said, really? I said, if we do this, you're going to go live there for like 12 to 18 months. You're committing your life to this pathway. He said, I'm in. I said, okay. So we met with my partner. We each put up $100,000. Big money for me. I was scared to death. And we sent my son over to, oops, can you still hear that? Sent my money over to, we sent him over, and we went to the capital of Bamako, Mali. We found a defunct egg farm, and we signed a lease for, 3-year lease for $700 a month. 6.5 acres, buildings, water, cheap. And we now have 10 workers, and it's crazy. And so just a little bit about Mali. There's 15 million people in Mali, but a little over 2 million that live in Bamako. They speak French and Bambara. That literacy rate is actually higher today. It's actually going up. It's running closer to 38%, or excuse me, it's going down. So it's a little under 30%. So 70% of their population can't even read. And unemployment and average wage is less than $2 a day. So we actually pay great wages. This is one of my favorite pictures. I actually took this picture. These kids are homeless and on the streets, and they carry these coffee cans. They didn't have them with them, and they beg, right? So there's Mali. The Sahara Desert runs right through it. So we went out, we hired a general manager, and we really felt it was important that we hire Africans, Malians, right? This is not a business in the United States. These are employees, and they are great employees. Right now we have about 16,000 hens, and it's you know what? It's great because this is what Mali looks like. It's just really open sewers, third poorest country in the world, and we've now cleaned up the egg farm. These are our chicken houses. This is our general manager's house, and then we have 3 families living here, and this end building is where we cook. We provide them 2 meals a day. By the way, Malians generally eat 1 meal a day. That's all. And they are really happy. Good wages. And we produce about 14,000 eggs a day.
10 people? Like 10 workers, 14,000 eggs a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of eggs.
Yeah. So this is my oldest son. So he's the one that said, hey, I want to go and do this. So we jumped. And we have some employees. You can see the cages in the back. These are some dear young men. This young man was working with us for a while. And just good people. So, oops, I'm hitting. I jumped, sorry. So we actually have some competitive advantages, right? So there are our chickens, and they're caged. We're actually moving away from cages. After 4 years, we found that free-range chickens, our mortality rates are going way down. And but it requires more effort from our employees, and we're just working through that right now. When we first started, my partner and I, we didn't know anything about chickens. But what we found out is that there are 4 key ingredients to raising hens or managing hens. 1 is water. They have to have water. 2 is feed. And I'm going to come back to that. 3 is temperature. Mali is hotter than hot. It is smoking hot. And so we have to manage the temperature with big fans in the buildings. You can't see them at the ends, but there's 2 big fans that are blowing all the time for airflow. And then the 4th is light. So you have to manage, they need about 16 hours of light a day. And do you know that hens lay an egg about every 22 hours? So there's this cycle. It's kind of interesting. So we make this investment. Our first year, we lose $26,000. We think, oh man, what have we got ourselves into? And you kind of have to look yourselves in the eye and say, are we really committed to this? Because then all of a sudden it required a little bit more cash infusion. But year 2, we started figuring it out. Part of it is just upfront fees of you've got to invest, and then you've got to build a necessary amount of hens. You have to have volume in order to generate enough revenue to cover overhead and expense. And our biggest expense is corn, and I'm going to come back to that toward the end. Need to be careful here on my time. So what's really cool is between 2018 and 2019, with some additional donations, we actually, and our goal was to take the proceeds and build schools. We wanted to build schools for young men and young women with a real heavy emphasis on young women. Really, CETO had a big, big effect on me. Big, big effect. It just, I can't tell you how many girls ended up getting pushed out of school for something that is very natural and very wonderful, and that women have to deal with, right? And so we ended up building 2 schools from the revenues, and we're on track. We've had in early 2020, not only did the pandemic hit, but we had a huge virus go through our egg farm. We lost about 6,000 hens in about 14 days. Just almost pulled the plug on the whole thing. And so you're just battling. And how is that application in other businesses? You know, what are businesses now facing today? Let's talk about tourism for just a minute. Let's just pause and talk about tourism. What's going on in tourism right now? Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously with the coronavirus, outside of national parks, no one's traveling anywhere. So everyone's having to take a deep look at themselves and see where their values are and where they need to cut excess loss.
Yeah, so to your point, national parks are really on the rise because people can drive. But what's happened to the airline industries, right? Yeah, just like, and I promise you in the next 6 to 18 months, you're going to have consolidation and bankruptcy. They're laying off people now, but we actually, for the foreseeable future, for the next probably, I would say 3 to 5 years, travel is really going to be minimal until everybody's vaccinated. And again, there's just things that I'm watching. I'm sure you're watching as well. There's these different variances of the virus, the changes, what's going on. And so, but I suspect that you're going to see 1 or 2 major airlines go down or be consolidated. And sometimes consolidation can be good, and sometimes it can be bad. And but when pandemic hit, what happened is everybody stayed home. Hey, let's go to the Arches. Let's go to Zion's. Let's go up to Flaming Gorge. And what happened is boat sales, automotive sales, motorcycles, trailers, campers. But what happened? Airbnb, hotels, restaurants, tourism and hospitality. It's the #1 area right now of unemployment in our state. We actually have actually low unemployment. We're just under 4%. But from individual industries, tourism and hospitality are still running closer to 9-10%. So as you think about industries and think about businesses where you're going, that should be in your thought process, right? What are the weak points? I mean, what would happen is, so one of the things in the automotive side, and I know we're talking about eggs, but I'm going to shift gears for just a minute. We watch really closely things like autonomous driving, right? So what happens if Ford all of a sudden invented a car that was $5,000-$6,000, but it was autonomous, drove and took everybody everywhere they wanted to go, and they came into the marketplace and put 500,000 vehicles in this marketplace and just said, hey, use your phone. We'll have a car to you within seconds, minutes. It would, what it would do to the automotive industry? It'd put us on our head. It would really, that could take down a lot of automotive companies.
Are you talking about the vehicle deliveries, like when you buy a car online and they deliver them?
No, I'm talking about renting a car. I'm talking about you no longer even need to own a car. All you have to do is, if they had holding lots all over the city of 100, 200 cars, or they were just moving, just quietly moving, and all of a sudden you said, hey, I'm at Salt Lake Community College and I need to get to Sandy, and it's just like Uber. But all of a sudden now, you could have a car and, oh, it's $3. $3? Yeah, boom. And you get in the back seat, there's no driver. It takes you right where you want to go. And that's coming. That's coming. How long, how, when, where? I have industry leaders that'll tell me it's coming in 3 to 5 years. I have others that say 10 to 15 years, but it's coming. It'll start with big trucks, 18-wheel trucks. That's where it's coming first. So anyway, so we're building, with $50,000, we're now building schools. I can build a whole school for 600 kids, 600 to 700 kids for $50,000. Cheap. Yeah.
So what was the biggest difference between 2017 and 2018?
Just startup costs and figuring out what we're doing and learning curve. One of the biggest things that we did is we brought in a gentleman by the name of Chris Shepard, who was a third-generation egg farmer. We were messing with ingredients. We were trying to figure out we didn't know what we were doing. So that's a lesson in of itself. If you're starting a business and there's something that you don't know anything about, you might want to find an expert in the field to help you. Chris made all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. And so, here's just some fun photos. What's really interesting is we had two families that came and moved on our farm, and they were struggling for years to have children. And all of a sudden, they came on our farm, good job, 2 meals a day, and in the 5 years, they each have 2 children, and they've got a third coming. And so, not only are we raising eggs, we're raising children as well. So, and this is this is a group of our kids in one of our schools. So, we had to buy a generator. So the temperature was a huge issue, so we bought a generator so we could run the fans, run the lights. When you start a business 6,500 miles away, it's hard. We have weekly meetings, 30-minute meetings, generally by phone. We've provided internet activity on the farm. It's very, very low key, but they can call. And they have card inserts into their phones. It's just prepaid calls. And they gather around the phone. We ask them some quick questions. We have checks. We get a weekly summary report on numbers of eggs laid, numbers of deaths, number of egg cells, how long the eggs are sitting at the egg farm. Actually, I don't know if you know this or not, but when an egg is laid, it has a really kind of a soft membrane around the egg that protects it. Our farmers wash that. They clean it off to take it to market. And part of it is because of salmonella issues. They have to clean the eggs differently. But in Mali, that's not an issue. But that membrane you can actually have eggs sit on a shelf for 2 to 3 weeks. No problem. Not refrigerated. Now, we don't have an egg on our farm over 3 days. That is a rule, hard and fast, because we just don't want any problems with the eggs. And I think that's an American issue, not a Mali issue. Just we want to be protectant of the people we sell eggs to. So you can see we have accidents. That's a 3-wheel cart. We went to pick up corn for our feed. So there's challenges. You're being faced with challenges all the time in how you manage a business. So here are my reasons of why I started a business. One, I personally believe I want to be a builder. I want to be a builder of men. I have 2 boys. I felt like I've raised them well. I was on the phone with my son as I was coming here, and he said, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm coming to teach at Salt Lake Community College." He said, "Wow." He said, "That's cool." He said, "When did you become a professor?" I said, "I'm not a professor." And he said, "Well, tell them that I think they've got a good teacher." So that made me feel good. But when you think about how you influence others, right? How do you influence others? When you start your own business, or when you engage in a business, one, be a builder. Lift people up, right? make a difference in the lives of the people around you. You can be just as negative or just as positive when you go about managing and running a business. Now, you can have hard conversations. I'm right in the thick of one right now. I've got an employee that's not performing. And I had a very, very difficult conversation with him yesterday. And I've told him that at the end of the month, we need to either figure out what we're doing or we're going to part ways. Those are hard conversations. But it's because of performance, not because of personality or not because of, oh, you have a tattoo, I don't like that, whatever. I mean, that's not the issue. We need to treat people, we need to build people. That's always my goal. One, I just want to do something that's going to influence my family. It's going to make a difference. And it's our family project, right? It's my son and I, we're connected together. He's still involved. I have a little bit of a faith. I have an engagement with the faith in Mali, so I'm LDS, and we've engaged the church there as well. Part of it is to help us, and part of it's to help others. The church donated a half dozen well kits that we've built wells for villages as well. We worked with them. So that's just a side note. And our whole goal, again, is then it's self-sustaining. And it is. It's making money. And that's what impact investing is, right? Do you know what impact is? Have you ever heard that term? So impact investing is when you take funds and you place it, and it's more of a business-related entity, and it makes an impact, but it's self-sustaining. It's providing us, it's spinning off cash for donations. And so, and these are just some last principles, and then we can open it up for discussions and talk a little bit further. So, did I say 65? It's 63.51, that's the mileage. So, anytime that you want to start a business, and actually, let me open that up. Do any of you have an interest of starting your own business? Yeah, tell me, do you have an idea of what you want to do?
Yeah, this is long term, but I would love to become a consultant for struggling small businesses and be able to go in, see where they're struggling, and see whether it's a product, whether it's the team they've assembled, things like that.
Sure. So it would be helpful if you started your own business, went through that experience, so you can speak from experience. Okay. Anybody else? Do you have an interest to starting your own business? No?
I helped someone start a business, so now I'm learning.
You did?
Yeah.
What was it? What kind of business?
So the hair salon.
Sure.
One of like the original crew.
Is it still going?
Oh, it's going great, and she's a mentor to me now, and I love her so much. But I am not a maniac that she is. I couldn't do it. Because you have to have that passion.
You really do. So it's interesting. My niece started a hair salon and a boutique side by side, and I mentored her every month for a full year, and I kept telling her, get rid of the boutique, focus on the hair. I said, look at your numbers. Oh, but I love going out on these buying sprees and putting up these clothes. And I said, you cannot compete with Amazon. You can't compete with Walmart. You can't compete in the clothing industry. 4 years later, and losing, roughly $35,000 to $40,000 a year, she finally said, yeah, I'm done with the boutique. I said, man, I wish you would have just learned that 3 years earlier. And that's to your point, right? Numbers never lie. Numbers never lie if your data's good, right? And what I mean by that is that a lot of businesses, speaking about my niece, she's so passionate about wanting to do something that's so fun that she loves, having a boutique and dresses and blouses and hats and shoes and jewelry. But what she wasn't honest with herself around the numbers. Because I'd say, show me the numbers. Well, we lost this, but I made this month, but I lost this. I made it this month. I said, but at the end of the year, how much money did you make versus how much money did you lose? By the way, separate the two. Haircutting, this. Well, over here, haircutting, I'm making $50,000 a year. Over here, I'm losing $50,000 a year. Wow, so you're treading water. I said, Amy, at the end of 20 years, what does retirement look like to you? Or what does savings look like to you? By the way, she now has a boutique that's doing really well. You know, it just takes time. And that's part of that, you know, when I talk about maniacal, that's part of, are you tough enough and hard enough to ask yourself the hard questions? Are you honest enough with yourself to ask the hard questions? Because I promise you, and I liked what you said. What you said it. You said, hey, I'm not maniacal enough. I'm not passionate enough. And so what that tells me is that, hey, I love the world of business. I love the world of having a degree in business, but now I'd like to work with somebody. I'd like to work in an organization that I can make a difference. And that's being honest with yourself. I work in a structure that I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. And I surround myself with people that can help manage my weaknesses. And if you run and operate and start your own business, you better dang well surround yourself. One, you better really understand your weaknesses, and then you better surround yourself with people that will make a difference. So, this is one of my favorite lines. As I always said, it's 4th and goal. It's 4th and goal today. What do I mean by that? Does anybody understand the football analogy? Yeah.
This is your last shot to go for it.
Yeah. So you're all in, right? And I think in business you got to be all in, right? In basketball, it's I got 5 seconds left. I got the ball, and I'm down by 1 or down by 2, right? So I got to make the play. And I think those things have real reference. I think that's why I like the world of business so much, is because there's a lot of rawness to it and a lot of entrepreneurial to it. And also, you can make it what you want it to be. If you go work for a company and they hire you as a manager over products, right? You have a job description, but you can make it what you want it to be within those guidelines and framework, which you can be successful. That maybe you're not managing a boutique, but maybe what you're doing is working for products that go to boutiques. Hey, I know all about boutiques. I want to work with sales or distribution, or I want to manage inventory. And great. Well, hey, what's your turn rate with your inventory? Or how many bottles of shampoo did you sell today? Or it's that. That's the world of business. Sorry? Yeah, your KPIs, of course, right? And that's what, I know how many eggs, I know our yield rates. Right now, I have 3 flocks. One's running at 64%, one's running at 69%, one's running at 78%. 78%, meaning that's how many eggs I'm getting from that flock. And I also found out that those are free-range hens. So what I mean by that, they're in a building, but they're not caged. We're now getting rid of all of our cages. We've done this analysis for a full year. If I got 78% yield rates with all of my hens in 2021, 2022 right now, I would double my net profits. Double. That's how critical that is. So if I made $100,000, I could build 2 schools. Right? Or if I made $100,000, I now have $100,000. So however you're looking at it, right? I'm looking at it from a non-profit, more of a give back, because I have other businesses and other opportunities. But if I was selling shampoo, and all of a sudden I said, hey, if I can increase my sales by 2 more bottles a day, and my net profits go to, now we're making $8,000 a month, and I get paid a percentage of that versus $4,000 a month, man, that's awesome. I can put an extra $1 or $2 in my pocket, right? So, questions or thoughts? Yes, please.
Well, okay, so you touched upon this, and it wasn't about the eggs. So
That's okay.
we were talking about the cars. You were talking about that service where maybe you could go on an app or whatever. Were you going to talk about that in any of your other lectures?
We talk about it all the time. I read. So one of the things I would highly, highly recommend that you're constantly reading and that you're constantly finding good books to read. There's a lot of information. And I mean, what's happened? So I'll take 3 minutes. So I'll be quick. So in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a huge consolidation in the car business. What was happening is the big were getting bigger and the small were getting out. There used to be 25, almost 26,000 independently owned car dealers. There's now about 16,000. So what happened is the big got bigger, and at the time, the Garff Automotive Group in the early mid 90s, we had 10, 12 dealerships. We now have 80 stores, 60 locations. So what we started doing is we figured out a business model, and what we did is we took public-private funds. It was a public-private partnership, and that allowed us to grow dramatically. And so all these small mom and pops, we started buying them up. And now we have economies of scale. And so that's what happened with the industry. So now what's facing the industry is this issue of autonomous driving, right? And right now, Tesla actually it's already built in the cars, and there are other cars that have it. Have you ever been in a car where you can take your hands off the steering wheel and it lanes assist you? Keeps you in your lanes, right? That's a portion of autonomous driving. But right now, they're trying to figure out LiDAR. LiDAR is like radar, but it's technology driven to kind of allow cars autonomous driving. And there's issues like 4G versus 5G. You need a strong enough internet connection or Wi-Fi that the cars can work seamlessly, right? But the idea would be is that, hey, Johnny's down at the soccer field. I can't pick him up. Johnny, I'm going to send a car down and pick you up and bring you home. That's the service. That's where we're going. Right now, I know a gentleman, I met with him, and he actually has built 18-wheel trucks. They're in beta test right now. Eventually, you're going to see 30 to 40 18-wheel trucks that are going to be within 30 to 50 feet of each other, like a train going right down I-15, with nobody in the truck except the guy in the front.
Are they using renewable energy?
So that gentleman is. He's actually using natural gas, a combination of natural gas and battery operated. So, and battery.
Because I was going to say, with all that surface area on a big rig, you've got panels for solar at least.
Yeah, it's just not, the technology with batteries is just still not there. Yeah. It's still not there. And the thing is, here's the thing, is as a consumer, I love to be green when green and non-green is equal in my pocketbook. When I can buy an electric car that works just as well as gas, and it's the same price, I want to do that. But when it's $5,000 more, gosh, I'm trying to make ends meet, I'm trying to make my budgets. Right now, I'm just going to take the gas. And that's what, the technology and the affordability is really starting to come in line. Where I think, I mean, this is a whole different conversation, but I think solar panels really need to be pushed more and more on homes. I think that's an area where we should really, really focus regarding things like, trying to get more green, right? I'm a big fan of that. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Other questions? Sorry, you took me off on a tangent.
I'm so sorry. No, I personally find that to be a really exciting area, so I like to research on it. So I would appreciate it that you brought it up.
I suspect I think what's really driving autonomous cars is insurance agencies. There's roughly 60,000 deaths a year in auto-related. So who just got in a huge accident yesterday? Promise you, if he was in an autonomous driving vehicle and that car was driving, that never would have happened. Ever. You know, what I understand, and again, this is premature, but my understanding is that he was driving way too fast and didn't know where he was going. So he overcorrected, rolled the car, and ended up where he was at. So from everything that I've read, it doesn't sound like he was had any kind of drug-related issues or alcohol-related issues. So, yes.
On the other side of that, had he been in an autonomous vehicle and it had happened, that would be such a setback.
Yeah. And that's, to your point, there has been 2 or 3 accidents. When you dig down deeply, it's not sure if it's human error that drove the computer to make the choices that it made. But the issue is as autonomous cars are driving, they're looking at lots of different things. They can't, right now, they cannot distinguish between a cardboard human cutout and an actual human. They can't get that right. So that's the technology side of it, right? So if you took a cardboard cutout and pushed it out in front of that car would swerve, versus if you were a human, you saw this cardboard that kind of, let's just say it caught a gust of air and came at you, you'd know it. You'd say, oh, you'd hit your brakes, but what you wouldn't do is swerve out of the way, because the computer's saying, I'm going to kill a human, I got to move, versus you're saying, I'm going to hit a cardboard cutout of a human, and I can live with the damage on my car, but I can't live going off the embankment. So that's a little bit of what's going on with technology. So anyway, any last questions? Well, I just want to close by saying thank you for the opportunity to come and share some thoughts with you. I love what I'm doing in Mali. I love what I'm doing in education. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you today. So thank you very much.